If you're tuning in for the first time, thanks for joining the podcast. Be sure to check out our first episode where we recap the history of Fittest to the Coast. Dave and I did. It was a ton of fun. Got to go through all the different memories and moments. And today we're going to talk about some of our not so fond memories and moments. We've been doing this 4+ years, going on year 5, and we've made some mistakes over the years, haven't we, boys?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But we take the event very seriously. We're super passionate about the event, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. We can laugh at ourselves. We make fun of each other. I think that's why our team is so great, is that we just kind of poke fun at each other and just have fun. So we're going to poke some fun at ourselves today and tell you guys some of our biggest mistakes we've made with Fittest to the Coast. And I'm going to start out, guys, with something we all know well. We experienced it in different regards, but it was when we went to CrossFit Wando in year 2, and these issues were programming issues. The first one was I changed a workout last minute for our women's 35 to 44 division. So what happened was we wrote a workout, and every year, guys, we try to make the programming more and more challenging to fit the level of the level of skill the athletes are gaining every year, right? So in year 2, we programmed bar muscle ups, handstand walking, etc. And in the middle of the night, I woke up and freaked out because I felt like the field in the 35 to 44 women's division, the majority of the women might not be able to do the workout, and they would just be a lot of standing around. So I freaked out, woke up. It's probably 4 or 5 in the morning. I was set to release the workout in the morning, and I redid it. I changed the workout for the women, but not the men. Updated it online, updated the graphics. Didn't talk to anybody. Typically, I talk to you guys a lot about stuff like this and bounce ideas off, but I didn't talk to anybody, and I released the workout, and it didn't go over too well, did it?
No. No. The firestorm hit immediately.
Yeah, what happened, David? You can probably, because you witnessed it.
Yeah. I got the flames right out the gate. So I remember knowing the workout. You and I talked about it, different things, and then you plan on releasing it, and all of a sudden I walk into the gym the next morning. You'd released it, and I just get pelted, like bombarded with what was Kyle thinking and what is going on, and talking about this workout. And I'm like, what workout are you talking about? That's not what the workout is. And they're like, no, that's what it is. And they pull it up, and I'm like, I don't know what that workout is, but that's not what we talked about. And they were just going to town because of this programming change. And I said, I got to talk to Kyle. I need to plead the fifth right here and just kind of pause. So,
dude, I get to my office and I just see hatred on Instagram, indirectly directed at me. People didn't know who they were directing at, but I even have people, my friends, who are just saying this is stupid and just calling me out. And I'm like, my friends hate me.
Yeah.
And I immediately am like, oh my gosh, I just made the biggest mistake. I have Morgan calling me, going, you idiot. Why didn't you talk to me about this? And Morgan could care less about programming. So if she's telling me I'm an idiot, then I'm clearly an idiot.
Well, Kyle, the thing is, you put so much thought into programming, right? I mean, and you know this too. Kyle will bounce ideas off of other people he trusts and this, that, and the other, and have people test workouts over and over and over again. So for a move to happen, I guess I'm surprised by it, but at the same time, I'm not, because I could see you laying in bed overthinking it, and then on a whim, delete, new picture, up and ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember talking to Morgan. She's like, I don't know what Kyle was thinking. I was like, I have no idea. And I'm reading the comments on Instagram like, oof, this is probably the ugliest I've seen it, right?
Black eye coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, looking
sure.
back, it was not to make excuses because it was a bad decision. But when you look back and you're like, well, I was very incredibly stressed at the time. My wife we had just had a newborn baby, and we had my my son got diagnosed or got COVID and was in ICU for a time during this period as well. So I have a newborn baby who went through COVID. I had moved to 3 different places because we sold our home and moved to 2 different places while our home was being built. I left my job, quit my next job, went back to my old job, all during this time frame. And then I'm putting on this event while I'm in this rental house with a newborn baby. We were in the rental house while when I made this mistake. And I was just under so much stress that at that moment I was like, this is what I have to do. I have to change this workout. And it was the worst. It hands down to this day, it's still the worst decision I've ever made in regards to Fittest of the Coast. Worst decision.
And you weren't, let me just say this, you weren't changing it because you thought less of the female division. It was that you had this dream and you almost were thinking that some of the, like, they just weren't going to be able to complete it. It wasn't going to be a fun workout, these kind of things. Yeah. So you were almost like trying to help, but it was definitely the wrong move.
It was a terrible decision. Should have stuck with the gut, and you're exactly right. We preach, hey, athlete experience. And I woke up in the middle of the night and was like, they're just going to stand there and it's going to be awful. Okay. So we made a mistake, ended up changing it back, and it was a fantastic workout. The
ladies killed it.
They killed it. They did. It was awesome. I made a mistake, kind of, got nervous. And you learn from that, right? You learn, and we haven't made a mistake like that since, but you live and learn, right?
Speaking of standing there.
Oh, the pegboard. So that was the other issue. The other issue with Wando, and this was our second biggest mistake. And second biggest mistake easily was we programmed a pegboard in the final at Wando our second year. With great intentions, right? We're going to have this great challenging workout, new movement, high skill. The best of the best are going to do it. And we totally jacked up the programming for it, for some of the divisions. Some of the divisions, it was fine and it was great, but it was the most boring workout ever, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't great. I'll be totally honest with you. It was not great. I remember just standing there and I'm just looking. I'm like, it was the finals. It was at the end of the weekend. There really wasn't a whole lot of people there because, people filter out towards the end of the day on Sunday. But I just remember there standing. I'm like, this workout sucks because it was so long too. It was long, right? And, the girls did great. Listen, they did better than what I could have ever done on a pegboard. I'll be totally honest with that, right? But it was just a long workout. That's the only way I can really put it. That's my main memory of that whole part of the finals.
Yeah, there was a lot of sitting, talking around, questioning, a lot of things happening. I think the element of programming comes into play. There was some issues with just the reason the pegs were hard to use in general. They slipped out really too easily as far as whether it was the depth or the hole size, whatever. But it was hard. Josh tried to get up it himself. We kind of tried to play with it. But it definitely did not make for an exciting final.
Well, and how many gyms in general have pegboards in their gym and they're practicing? Very few. So if you're in the Charleston area, you need to go to Wando because they got 5.
Because we didn't take them off the wall.
We did. They're still up there. So.
But and again, it's one of those things that the men, the men didn't have a problem, and some of the women didn't. But again, for the final and the way it was programmed with the pegboard literally being the first movement, it could have been done better, right? And that's where we kind of look back, just, man, this could have been done better. And honestly, I think if that exact same workout had been programmed this year for our individual divisions, for the divisions in which it was programmed at Wando, those guys would have killed it this year, just because of how, just the level of athlete continues to improve every year, right? Everybody's getting better.
Absolutely.
And they would have killed it this year. But it was a swing, it was a miss. And it was one of those moments where me as an event, it's probably the only time I felt this in Fittest of the Coast history, is I wanted to go into a closet and hide.
Because you know, it's the finals. You're expecting to go out with a bang on the weekend. And it's kind of like, you know, how Nice was saying a little bit earlier, it was like setting off a firework that never went off. Yeah. There you go. That's how it was. And it's just like, hey, man, this isn't very exciting at all.
Yeah.
And then people are like, hey, Josh, what's the problem? I'm like, oh, you got to go talk to Kyle on this one, man. I had nothing to do with this, you know. But
if I could have been in a closet, I would have been in a closet at that point. But,
and for people that weren't there, just picture like a sparkler and then bring it down a notch. That's what kind of firework we're talking about. Like it wasn't even a
And the biggest letdown was that event was electric the whole weekend. That Saturday night lifting event was still to this day the most electric moment ever in Fittest to the Coast history. So to have an electric weekend that just absolutely we didn't finish strong. It was terrible. And at that moment I was like, we'll never do a final again because we messed up. But
yeah.
It is what it is. You live and learn. The other what else have we really messed up on, Josh?
That's well, I mean, we could be here all night if we were going to go that deep into it. I just think it's just things along the way, which you can't even really describe. They just more so happen in the moment, where it's just maybe communications things maybe that you post every once in a while, or things that are just said to people where they take it differently. You're like, no. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be. Equipment stuff. Not the dog Alex showing up on time, you know, that whole thing. And I don't know. I mean, I know we have a few examples more we're going to talk about, but it's just stuff that happens throughout the weekend and just throughout the year in general that I think it's funny as you go along and look back and say, man, what a goofy thing or we did there. But like you said, you live, you learn, and it's really brought the event to where it's at today.
Yeah. One of the other moments that sticks in my mind, it's not so much at the event, but it was before and after the event. And so this is how we do the operations of the event. So it takes two 26-foot trucks to get everything down that we own for Fittest to the Coast. Matting, bikes, runners, etc., boxes on boxes. Well, every year we have to rent a truck that has a lift gate, so that way we can put pallets of this matting on the lift gate and it lifts up into the truck, and then we just push it back, right? Rather than having to hand load 3 tons worth of matting, it would break our back. So we ran a truck this year, David, didn't we?
We did. But the truck was not the right truck. Let's just put it that way, right?
Wasn't it a budget truck? I mean, come on.
I'm not trying to sell anything out, but the name budget was kind of why the decision was made.
I'll never rent a budget truck again.
So this is what happens, Josh. So you're at work, man, and Josh at work. Kyle's like, "Hey, Tuesday of the event, like, are you busy?" I'm like, "Well, actually, Tuesday is my busiest day at work, but I will help you because we got to get this stuff done." And so he's like, "Hey, man, it's going to take like 15, 30 minutes max. I'll have you in and out. I got the truck." We were kind of communicating for like weeks. Is he going to get this truck with a lift gate? Because we didn't want to load it by hand. So he's been talking to Penske. He's been talking to different places. Finally, he gets budget truck lift gate. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to run to Richards, who runs Imagination Athletics, for those you don't know, and get this the pallet jack so we can actually move the pallets around." So he's like, "Meet me at the storage unit, the one on, you know where it's at." Yeah. He said, meet me at the storage unit at whatever time. I'm like, okay, no worries. I got some time to run some errands, things like that. So I meet him there. He shows up in this budget truck, and I'm like, okay, it's going to be kind of tight, but we can make this work. All of a sudden, he pushes the button, and lift gate comes open, and you're like, looking at it, you're like, there is no way this thing's big enough to hold a pallet. Let's go inside. Let's go inside. I want to see what kind of pallets we're working with. Maybe the pallets are smaller than the ones I've ever seen before, right? So we go inside to this like really tight area to where these pallets are, and I'm like, bro, these things are not fitting on there, but we're gonna try. Dude, it was a disaster.
Yeah. And
Well, listen, if
so-
that's your first thought, oh, sorry, go.
no, what I was going to say was then David has this bright idea where he's like, I'm like, dude, these ain't getting up. He's like, no, maybe we can just try. So he's like, we get this pallet on, and it's, I kid you not, the pallet is what, 3.5 feet wide, 4 feet wide. It's a foot on the freaking lift gate. And David's like, we can kind of push it as we lift. And this pallet weighs easily 1,000 pounds. He's like, we'll just kind of hold it up.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, bro, whatever at this point. So we start lifting it up, and immediately it just falls back. And all the mats just fall off and roll everywhere. And I'm like, well, dude, we're hand loading them.
Wait, and we're talking about the rolled up ones, right?
Yeah,
the rolled up ones.
They're
dude.
Those
are heavy.
No, they're 100 pounds.
Yeah.
They're 100 pounds each, and they're 4 feet long.
And they're awkward to carry. Yeah, I mean, we move them all the time. I didn't know if we were talking about square ones or not.
So each pallet probably weighs 2,500 pounds for each pallet, at least, because there's probably 25 or whatever. So then the dude says, so it falls, right? They fall over, things are cracking, this thing ain't working. He stops, he gets on the phone, he calls budget and is like, hey, you got another truck? This thing ain't working. They're like, no, but if you bring it back, we'll give you your money back. Like, that's what they say. We're like, that's great, but what are we going to do with the rest of this? Like, what are we going to do? So then he calls Penske and they're like, no, we don't have a truck for you, man. You can't, you're out of luck. So Kyle's like, dude, I'm going to have to load them all by hand. You get out of here. And I'm looking around at like 3 pallets worth of this stuff. And he's like, you just leave. Yeah. I'll do it myself. I'm like, bro, I'm not leaving you here. Like, we started a job. We're going to finish it. I didn't know it was going to take us 3 hours. I was thinking 30 minutes, but here we are.
Yeah. Well, and listen, I feel it's funny you telling the story because your exact thought process is exactly what I would have thought, saying, okay, this thing's a little short. This don't look normal for a lift gate, right? And then you're like, we can make it happen. We can definitely make it happen. And you're like, we'll support it from the back. And then it starts happening. You're like, man,
this ain't it.
Have to load these. Yeah, we could have to load these. And,
the other problem was the truck was the gift that kept on giving, right? Because we had to get it there, then we had to get it back and get the mats off the truck. So me and Josh, after just events, just kick your butt, physically. So we get everything back Monday night to Myrtle Beach to the storage unit. And I'm like, Josh, we're going to have to hand unload these things now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's get the assembly line going. So and honestly, Niece, when he told me that, I was like, this isn't real. This isn't real. Because I was exhausted, because I spent the night at the hotel Sunday night after the event was over. That was the night of the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
Who doesn't try and stay up and watch it? I fell asleep. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I was so tired.
I slept there at a hotel too. I fell asleep during the game.
Yeah, we all did, right?
We all did. We all passed right out. And then what was it? I think, Kyle, you guys all left earlier that morning and got back to Myrtle. And I drove back. I think I drove back to Big U-Haul that morning.
Yeah, you had to drive back the other because then we had 2 trucks to unload. That's
yeah. And then we didn't end up unloading that until what time was it? It was late on Monday.
Yeah. So let's just put it out there. If anybody that listens to this podcast, 1 has a truck with a lift gate, hit us up. 2, has
definitely. Well, no, Kyle.
Has
a lift gate that has the proper length.
Yeah.
If it's a budget, send it back.
Or they have a warehouse with a what are they called? Where you can back right up to it. A loading dock, that they'd rent us, or a forklift. Any of those.
Forklift would be great. I love a forklift.
That we could use in Myrtle Beach. That would be fantastic. The lift gate, that was one of our biggest operational mistakes, right? Even though it wasn't our fault. Well, technically it was our fault because this is the part of the story that kind of gets me depressed. I had a truck with Penske, a proper lift gate and a proper truck, but budget came in under budget.
well under budget, but I don't know if it was worth that energy.
It was cheaper. And I even remember talking to Josh about this, and I was like, you know what? I could save some money. Let's
But
do
wasn't
it.
the Penske one? It was located. Wasn't it in Wilmington though?
No, it was located in
It
Conway.
was right out there by the school.
The reason we went with budget was because the truck was 6 inches shorter, so we felt like it would maneuver better in our Charleston storage unit area because it was
You're
so
right.
tight back
That's
there.
right. It was tight.
So we
yeah.
said, hey, yeah, let's go with the shorter, cheaper truck. And then when I called Penske to say, hey, y'all, I don't need the truck anymore, they gave it to somebody else. So then when I called them and said,
Like,
I wanted
you said you didn't need it. What, we gave it away. We
yeah, they were
rented
like,
it.
because these things are hard to get too.
Mhm. Oh, I remember that. You were talking like a month leading up to it,
Yeah.
saying, "Man, I don't know if I'm able to get a lift gate, man." I was like,
Yeah,
I was
like,
like, you have to find a lift gate.
that's
Like this isn't
Oh, he did, but it didn't work.
Yeah, like that is legit. Like I had 3, and then I had a friend who owns like a hotel management company in town, who was going to give me his his truck, right?
Mhm.
Dude, like these things are hard to find. So seriously, if you have one, like it will be a problem again. I guarantee you next year. It's just
Listen, we'll always need a lift gate.
yeah.
Hands down. I can't think of a situation where we're not moving a bunch of heavy equipment or a lift gate would not be necessary.
Yeah.
But key thing, proper length. If it's a budget,
Yeah.
we send it back.
Yeah. All right. The other big mistake we made is another trucking issue. And that comes by the way of the worms in when we had our event in Charleston, our team event. And it's a twofold story. I'll tell the first part. Kind of give a little background information. So we use worms from Compete Force, right? They let us use the worms. But the first thing is the worms were located in West Palm Beach, Florida. I live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The guys are like, hey, Kyle, can you go get them? And I'm like, I'm really excited to have worms. So I'm like, heck yeah, I'll drive down there and get there. And I think what I ended up doing was telling Morgan, hey, we can take a trip to Disney World. The only catch is I'm going to have to leave for a day and go get these worms. So I leave the day during our trip to Disney. I rent a U-Haul trailer, hook it up to my truck. I go pick up these worms in West Palm Beach, and I start driving back to Orlando. Well, I'm about an hour in, and all of a sudden I hear the tires blew out on the U-Haul, and I'm stranded with 2,000 pounds of worms in the back of a trailer on the side of the highway in Florida. Don't know anybody, right? End up having to call the U-Haul hotline. They send somebody to fix it, but I'm standing there for like an hour waiting for them to come replace my tires. And then I end up taking them back to Myrtle Beach, but that wasn't the first problem. The next problem we ran into with those worms were after the event. All right, I'll tell the story, Josh, and then you can kind of give your opinion on it.
Okay, let's hear it.
So what? So we're in Charleston, right? We're we're packing up after the event. We pack everything into this.
Well, and this was year 3. This wasn't this past year.
Yeah,
obviously.
it was
this
year
was
3.
Yeah.
Yeah, after this epic ice storm. And
yeah, the epic ice storm. That's right.
So we load the matting. We had a proper lift gate that year, mind you, which was great.
Yeah.
We load the matting into the truck. We load the worms in. We shut the truck. We're like, we're freaking done. Let's get out of here. Let's go back to the rental house and go sleep. Shut the truck. Then all of a sudden, the guys from One More Athletics, who we used for equipment that year, they look at me and go, hey, Kyle, we haul heavy stuff for a living.
That's right.
And that truck don't look good. Josh and I turn around. We look at the truck, and the truck is like this, leaning.
Oh, yeah.
They go, ain't no way you're getting back to Myrtle Beach in that truck. That thing's going to flip over on you.
Oh, yeah. It was horrible. I mean,
and what we did was we put all the worms and matting on one side of the truck because we were idiots and didn't know what we were doing, and it was overloaded to one side. So then what did we have to do, Josh?
Well, we had to unload everything. It was miserable. I mean, and those worms, they're not, I mean, anybody that's picked them up, in general, they are heavy. And imagine moving them when they're stacked at an awkward angle in a truck that's already packed with stuff. So it's not like we're just on some like open floor saying, hey, man, just toss this here. It's like, no, like you're climbing over stuff just to get back behind things, shove them out. And you're like, all right, let's move this over here now. And keep in mind, you're sweating, you're exhausted because this is the night, Sunday night, everything's done. And you're just kind of looking at each other like, man, this blows.
And then we had to rent a second truck Monday morning, and we had to throw all the worms into the second truck because, like, we couldn't.
Mhm.
We had done such a terrible job packing that truck. Like, we overloaded it. Like, we had too much weight in there. We had like there was no way it was to code, so we had to rent a second truck. And me and Josh are just in the parking lot at the convention center Monday morning, just throwing worms from one truck to the next.
Well, Kyle,
hating our life.
Do you remember getting that second truck?
Oh yeah, we went to that little shack in North Charleston.
So Nice, we were looking for this place to get this truck, and this is what, Monday morning. Kyle's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna need your help. I'm sorry." I'm like, "Hey, dude, no big deal. I'm here to see this."
I think I threw you some more money.
Oh, you better believe it.
That's typically how things
money
happen, right,
talks.
Josh?
Hey, money talk. You need me? Oh, say less on that. So we're on our way. I'm thinking, dude, where is this place? And then we find it, and it's almost like Kyle, you would almost call it like a mom pop U-Haul place, right?
It was a Jamaican family, and they had this little shack where they rented U-Hauls, but they also made breakfast.
Yeah, like Nice, if you went to this place,
and it was the best dang breakfast.
I'm in on that.
Oh, the lady said, the guy cooking the food, we asked her, well, what do you got? They were like, anything you want. And we basically, I think we told him, was like, give us your best. And he loaded this like breakfast burritos up, and it was great too because they had Netflix on, and I remember they were playing Ozark on the show. And I was like, dude, this place is great.
I felt like my college days where I was hungover from the night before, just with my buddies, just eating some breakfast. That's how I felt. I was like event hungover. Me and Josh are just sitting there, dead tired, waiting for Johnny or whatever the chef's name was to whip us up some custom burrito. We eat the burrito, then we go get our U-Haul from the parking lot, and then we start loading up worms. And then we met we also met a homeless guy while we were doing that too.
Yep. Well, the homeless guy comes up. Me and Kyle are doing assembly line with U-Haul backed up to U-Haul. So we don't even have to touch the ground. The lift gates are literally touching each other. So it's just one platform. That's what it came down to. Because I remember you handing it to me, and I'm just chucking as far as I can. Like, let's get this stuff in here. I'm trying to get home. And this homeless guy comes up. Nice guy. Very nice guy. And he's like, hey, man, you guys got any money, this, that, and the other thing? And Kyle's like, well, we don't have any cash on us, but here's a pack of energy drinks. Hands him like 2 packs. I'm like, dude, hand him a water. Hand the guy some water here. And I'm just like cracking up. And this guy's walking away. I'm like, literally, I was like, that guy will be up for the next 48 hours straight because he's going to be sitting there thinking, what did these guys just give me?
It's a nice fruit beverage they gave me, you know?
Oh, we had a ton. For anybody that's been a part of Fittest of the Coast, we always get these drinks, typically the first couple of years, from an energy drink called NOCO. And they would send, Kyle, how many did they send? How many did they send? It's a lot. You know the number better than I do.
Thousands.
Pallets full.
I mean, we're just trying to get rid of stuff. And I remember at RH Acres, we had so much NOCO left over that Kyle, it was a Sunday morning, you put out a post, and I had all these NOCO set up on this table, and they went gone within like 30 minutes. And
thousands.
And I mean, so basically, I hope that homeless guy really enjoyed the NOCOs. That's all I can say. That's about it. I hope he had something he had to do where that gave him the energy to do it.
And you guys hopefully learned that you need to pack the truck evenly so you don't have to unpack it to get home.
And ultimately, that's the greatest lesson we've learned through it all.
Yeah.
Pack a truck evenly so you don't have to redo it.
Yeah. So a couple operational errors and a programming error.
But Kyle, in our defense, I mean, when have we ever packed a truck up like that before? There's been no need to, right?
No, but we're pros now.
I wouldn't say we're pros now. We're getting not better. Rookies. We're not rookies anymore.
We're amateurs. We're qualified
definitely
amateurs.
Like, people could ask me, like, "Hey, man, here's a little tip for you," But
yeah, well, it's been a good time.
Yeah, it's definitely been a good time. And I remember, I mean, Anisha, you've been around for a ton of it, obviously. Just kind of talking about things. Because I remember, what was it? what was it? The first year you did you compete the first year, Nice?
No, the first year I just magically showed up.
So,
the day
and
of.
I think your story always cracks me up with it, where from the beginning, it's one of these things you just somehow, I'm not going to say get sucked into it, but before like a weekend was over, and this is like the first couple years, you always end up playing some major role by the end of the weekend, right? Like I remember year one, I'm standing outside, you're kind of almost orchestrating the whole workout. I'm exhausted, and I don't know if you remember my thing. All I was yelling was, clear the lane for
I
the
remember that.
runners to come through.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, it's just funny because you've been a part of it since day one. And I mean, you've seen the ups and downs. So that's funny stuff.
Yeah, that first year when you were doing that clear lane, we had like bike racks because they had to come inside and all that. And
Yeah. I mean, it's quite the maneuver. It really was, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a good time. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I think we'll leave it at that. I think maybe we'll hop on another time and tell some more horror stories. But I think, I think that's a good start. There are many more, many more. One of them I'll tease was when there were gunshots at RH Acres. That was a good one. And yeah, that was a good one.
When was that?
You weren't there. It was when me and I'll just tell the story. Why not?
I mean, yeah, you already kind of
last story, and then we'll call it. So RH Acres, we talked a little bit about it in our first podcast episode. Dave and I did, kind of in a cool little spot, but it was a little bit of a shady part of town. We ended up renting a camper because I wanted to sleep there. Make sure nobody stole all the sound equipment that we rented or the equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one night, my brother actually slept there with me, and dude, it's probably like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We're actually moving stuff around, getting ready for the next day. It's pitch black, can't really see anything. All of a sudden, you hear pow, 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 pow. Somebody's like shooting a gun, and my brother Nick yells, "Hey, Kyle, are you still alive?" And I go, "Yeah, I am." And dude, it was just a shady area. There was also people that would just like come into like RH Acres at night. We're like, dude, what are these people doing? Like, I swear they were like doing drug deals there. Yeah, it was a cool place, but interesting place. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's one way of describing it. Definitely. I mean, you had quite the little setup in that camper there. That's for sure. And I was never more grateful to be able to go back to my apartment and say, "Kyle, I'll see you in the morning."
Yeah.
I remember Kyle. I think Kyle, didn't you have to come to my house to take a shower because you didn't have like water there or something?
Oh, yeah. I did go to your house and take a shower because you lived right down the road.
Kyle's like, "Hey, man."
So
because I didn't go home the whole weekend and I needed to shower.
So I was like, "Kyle, man, if you need to come to my house, take a shower." He's like, I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to do that. Is that okay? And I was like, I wouldn't have offered if it wasn't all right. So he's like, I'll be there in like 30 minutes.
Well,
okay.
Listen, Kyle, you remember, Nice was out there mowing the grass with his own mower. You think he's going to care if you come take a shower? I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, but it was pretty late at night, right?
I'll tell you what.
I know the Nice family goes to bed at a reasonable hour.
Most of the Nice family, right? Like.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, that's too funny.
All right. Well,
that's too funny.
This has been fun. For those that are listening, thanks for listening. Make sure you actually like and review and subscribe to this podcast.